not my own. Okay, so then yeah, that's it. So I met with all of the package members in, is it last year?
Last year, yeah.
I like, so because of this COVID, I have lost like several years. I think after 2019, it's like 2021. I don't know what happened to that middle year.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thanks, Kitty. I can go ahead next. I'm Sandev, an artist, and also maybe begrudgingly work as a curator once in a while, and mainly an educator. And I am one part of the packet. And so this is, we were kind of invited by Virangana at the Arts Festival to develop something for future landing. And so at the last session, we kind of looked at the thing that we developed and kind of talked through some of it. And now we've basically put together a little game for us to play together. And I'll go into that more later, but maybe Tashi or someone else wants to go next.
Hi, I'm Tashi. I am a poet. I'm currently studying international development, so some of my work is kind of influenced by that at the moment, at least. Yeah, I came on board through same as Kitty, through the Packets program last year for with about 12 other artists. And yeah, happy to be here. Excited to play the game. Yeah. I'm going to pick Priyanka.
Hi, everyone. I'm the one who's been sending you all these emails the past few weeks. I work for the Serendipity Arts Foundation. Keith and I have been handling Future Landing, but he can't be here today, so it's just me. I'm happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Imad. I'm also one part of the packet. I'm an artist, poet. Really excited about this workshop. It is really fun figuring out what we wanted to do with you guys, and we were really thrilled with how the first day went. So looking forward to today. Is Virangana back?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I just started saying something. Hi everyone, I'm Virangana. It's so nice to see everyone here. I know everyone's like in a holiday mode right now, so thank you for being here. And I'm so excited to play today's game because I have to admit that even after Future Landing launched, I used to go back to play with the packets. Things like I remember speaking with Sandev about this, that, you know, it was like a good way to break through like a writer's block or just to get thinking when you were like stuck in it. And I used to go back to the packets work really often to think through that. So I'm excited about what's going to happen today. And thank you for doing this. Right now, yeah.
Of course, this is going to be hopefully going to be fun. We've just developed it like shortly, kind of discussed it over the phone. So where maybe some of the kinks need to be worked out, but basically at the end of it, we're hoping that we'll be able to almost put together a form of a zine by the end of this game, basically. And it's just very easy. It's not like a complicated, highly theoretical thing. But sorry, Imad, you introduced yourself also. Oh, yes. Let me just share my screen very quickly. Can you all see my screen? Yeah. And it says behold, right? Yeah. So before that, I've also given you all, I've dropped the link on the chat too. I've given you all access to this thing called a Figma board. And once you click on that and go into that link, you'll get access to this Figma, and then there'll be a little file here that says click here, future landing, bring your own meaning. So if you click on that, you'll be able to find and log in. Yes, I see Virangana is there. Yeah. So Imad, should I just jump in a little bit and just give a little bit of context?
Yeah.
So I've been, this is again, we've just kind of been thinking on the go here, thinking in public here, but been thinking about this word behold. And when you each think about this word, what comes to your mind? What occurs to you? What do you associate with the term of beholding? Just feel free to jump in and say it.
Pausing.
Witnessing.
Witnessing. Sorry, I missed what someone said before that.
Pausing.
Pausing. Witnessing.
Embracing.
Embracing. Okay. So pausing, witnessing, embracing. What else comes to mind? Let's find one more word.
Something that's unusual to see, so you have to like pause to look at it. And you wouldn't behold like a usual object like a pencil. So
something that is unusual to see. So pause. So that's a really interesting idea to me, that sense of like something that's unusual to see and pausing to look at it. So what we had done in the previous session, or with what we had developed for Serendipity, is that a bunch of us pooled, hundreds of photographs together and added them into this kind of randomized thing that places the photographs or randomizes the relationship between photographs, but always shows two photographs together and maybe a text. And there's this conversation that emerges between the photographs. And so in some ways, I think this notion of, and then what we had done after that is after that first session, we asked the folks in that session to submit images from their own archives, from their own phones, screenshots, images, and things like that, to come up with 10 images and share it with us. So we have those 10 images now on the Figma board, and some of you who are here might be able to see it, who are on the Figma board might be able to see it. But on my screen, I'm really interested in this notion of beholding, right? Just as something unusual. So when these two photographs would maybe come together, there was a relationship. You're used to what you've seen in the photograph. You've taken a picture of it for a certain amount of reasons. And then someone else has taken another picture for whatever reasons. When they come together, it's so often an unusual pairing, and all of a sudden you have to sit back and behold it. So in many ways, I think that notion of what the project we worked on for Future Landing was this exercising, inviting people to behold, and then screenshot on top of that, right? And something that has since then I've really gotten to thinking is really encompassed by this quote, kind of by Ariela Azule, which is this fantasy of photographs as discrete objects that can be owned by one person or institution is part of the imperial regime that makes us believe that a photograph captures a bygone moment to which we are latecomers. So in this sense, what I guess Azule is perhaps, I think, talking about is the idea of the photograph as something that has captured something in a particular time. And the photograph itself being this kind of objective collection or witness or beholding of what has happened. And she questions that. She asks us to relook at photographs again and think about, instead of photographs as a bygone moment to which we are latecomers and now we are viewing it, to view it as the act of us looking at it, as looking at a photograph that's already been made with a set of identities and ideologies and mechanisms that has gone into creating that photograph, has kind of invited us to look at it and say, and behold it, and think about the event of us looking at a photograph. And think about that in itself as another event in photography, in which we are confronted with the photograph. And I think Tina Camp speaks to a lot of these things that we covered last time. And so this game, in many ways, very much kind of tied to our kind of previous workshop, and then also what we developed for Future Landing, is really an exercise in beholding not the photograph, not that event itself, but the photograph that has been made at a different point in time, a bygone moment, and to think about us beholding it in the present, to look together and to discuss and have a conversation about this image, and think about that in itself as an event of photography and beyond. In some ways. So I'm just going to move into this a little bit. Here you'll see there are 4 grids here, and we have 4 folks who kind of sent in their photographs on either side. Okay? So what we're going to do is, oops, I think I lost a few photographs here. What we're going to do is we're basically going to take a few turns, and there are these 5 areas here, or 4 areas here, and we're going to have like one person pick one photograph and insert it into that first box, right? And then it kind of acts like a sort of like a relay. So the next person picks another photograph that they immediately relate or feel like they can connect to from their collection over here, and adds it to the second box, and then third and fourth, and so on. And then it goes back again to the first person, and they add a new photograph, and then the other person adds second, third, fourth. And so we kind of play with these in these kind of.
Just one question: are you picking from the lot? Are you picking from the photographs that we've put in, or from anyone's?
You're picking for the photographs that you have put in.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. So, for example, I know Pranay is not here, but I mean, how do you feel?
So apparently Anushka has uploaded photos too.
Oh, okay.
Maybe we can swap out Pranay's with Anushka's.
Sure. Let me just do that very quickly. Stop sharing my screen.
Maybe Anushka, if you tell us which folder you have put yours in.
I see it. Yeah, I see it. Oh, I don't see it in the workshop folder.
It's in the packet FL workshop.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I missed that. I can quickly look at it. It's taking some time. Okay.
So basically, we can pick images from any folder.
No, it's you see your name. Yeah, you see your collection there. Yeah. So I see these are Virangana. Anushka, is this yours?
Yeah, all the ones that say modified at 139. Or should I just copy them onto my folder quickly?
Yeah, if you can upload them to Figma, you can just drag and drop them all into into the Figma board.
All right.
Sorry about that. I didn't see that. I thought those are Virangana's images because it had Virangana on the top. Virangana, did you upload any images? No. Right?
I did. So the ones you've got there are the ones which I've uploaded.
Yours, no? Okay. Yeah, I don't see them. Kitty, were you able to get access to Figma?
Yeah, I'm in the app now. I can see the pages, and I am trying to select the images.
How should I?
If you just from whatever folder they're on your computer, if you just drag and just drop them into the board, they will just fall in.
Oh.
Or you can share the link to your folder in the chat box here, if that's easier for you.
I'll just download them onto my laptop because I uploaded them from my phone, and then it'll just take me like 2 minutes. So
you can also drop the link here just so that Sandeep and Nimad have access to it, and you can download them. I mean, both, so that.
Okay.
Okay, so you added them to my folder. Okay. Hang on, should I delete mine from this since you copied mine?
Okay, I see that.
Or let me just rename mine. Hang on.
Sorry about this. I thought it was like the
Sorry.
folder for the
No
workshop. So
worries.
No, don't worry.
No problem. I'm actually wondering if I have uploaded Virangana's and Anushka's together.
I think that's what's happened. Hang on, let me just relay mine 1 minute.
Okay. Yeah, if you can separate out yours, because I think I've uploaded all the images in that folder. Maybe.
right. Oh yeah, mine are here.
You can just drag yours and move them to
Oh,
the
okay.
side.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll just do that.
So we have 5. Let me just prepare 5 boxes.
So Sandeep, you will play as Pranay?
Sure, I can play as Pranay. Well, I'm also wondering if we need to, just given the time.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. That we just work with.
Yeah.
Because it's
Work
also
out
Pranay's
Pranay.
images. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Cool. That makes sense.
Sandeep, I have the app, but I can't drag them. I can view all the changes that is happening.
But you can't drag, no?
Yeah.
That's fine. So why don't you, you can just point me where you want me to, what you want me to select.
Yeah.
And,
So can I send you
I've
like
separated mine into this folder. I've just put the link in the box. So the rest are all Anushka's now. I put my 10 into a folder. So they're out of, it's within that folder just so that they don't get confused outside of it. But I've dropped the link in the chat box.
Virangana, if you look at the screen, are these yours? The ones I'm zoomed in on?
Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's one missing. Wait, I'll tell you which one's missing. Hang on. There's image 6347 is missing. 1 second, I'll just put a link here. It's in that folder. I'll just add the link so it's easier.
Okay. Sorry, folks. It's a little bit of a cumbersome operation.
Yeah, I just put that link in. So that's the 10th image. Yeah.
Let me download it real quickly. All right, we are good to go. All right, okay. So what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna move your selection of photos to this side. So we have some rooms. I'm crowding up those. And then Anushka, do you mind if I move your just images down here?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Sorry about this. Again.
All good, no problem. All right, so what we're gonna do is, I don't know, this is again an experiment, right? And it's a very low tech kind of experiment, but it's a kind of experiment in kind of sharing and thinking together with images. So you see the 4 boxes here. what we're going to do is maybe Tashiana, you could start. And so Tashiana's going to have like three turns. So Tashiana chooses one image and uploads it in the first box. And then we'll just go in a clockwise fashion. So Kitty, you would be next. Then it would be Anushka, and then finally Virangana. And so what we do, and then drop them in the box. And then as we have these four, we'll quickly kind of spend a little bit of time thinking through associations, and just feel free to, we can just free associate, right? We can play, we can speak about what these ideas come to us as. In fact, we can even type whatever keywords come if you want to. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this box to the side. So at the end of it, we essentially have these like sheets of a zine of these kind of image relationships kind of thing. And we can kind of put it together at the end. So Tashi, why don't you start with your first image? And then we can just go. So as soon as Tashi is done setting, we'll move into Kitty's. And Kitty, I can zoom in and you can tell me which one you want to put in there. So Tashi, why don't you go? Yes.
Sandev, I can send you the link as well, so you can easily edit, no?
It's already up here. I've already uploaded it.
Yeah.
So it's easier for me to pull from here because I can see it directly.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So Tashi has added Pitbull, globalization, Fireball feed John Ryan. All right. Kitty, which one would you want me to pick to respond to that?
I want you to the one with the Disneyland.
Yeah.
The one at the bottom.
All right. Let me move that there. So again, with this page, you can also zoom in and zoom out. All right. So I think Anushka, you're next.
Yes. Let me just move this. Yeah.
And once you move it, what I can do is I can do the expanding, so it's easier. So you can all see yours. All right.
Oh God.
And Virangana, you're next. Oh, you moved your one, no? Yeah. All right. All right. We have our first 4 images. Who would like to just jump in and talk about whatever relationships are occurring to them as they're looking between these 4 images? Tashi, do you want to lead with what you were thinking about that first image?
So where the image came from and like why it exists.
Sure, yeah.
So,
or what you even see, yeah.
Yeah. So I thought I was just listening to music one day and it was on shuffle and I was listening to and it came with this song and I just thought that I wanted to save it, but then I thought that the poster was really interesting because I didn't know that he had an album called Globalization, which I thought was just really comedic also because he starts out every song with Mr. Worldwide. And the poster is like face kind of being plastered with the world map on it and the tux and the bow tie. And I thought it was just really funny that the album was called this. And so I just like screenshotted it. But it really, the fact that there's a heart next to it too, really, I don't know, sink something into me as something that's kind of like a part of my identity now. But yeah, it was just an interesting picture that
And what are folks seeing, I guess, with the next couple of images, beginning with this, can we start to free associate or even speculate about what the relationships could be between these?
The reason I put that last one in was about witnessing change and being comfortable with it. But I also realized I probably ended up making it so pixelated and lowering the resolution that you can barely read it. So it's also about how we blur this idea of acceptance in some way, but have this very vivid notion of what perfection needs to be for us. And it's interesting to see how there's that Disney castle alongside what could be our reality outside of, and it is a reality in some way as well. Yeah.
Yeah. What about others?
I
Go ahead.
think like the ideology is given from Disney, and so the basically, even though the title or the album says globalization, normally what his lyrics normally include, when I look at this cat climbing the window, I feel like if we take this idea, it's like same like in life, it leads to nowhere. So, but still, most of the people are influenced by uh, these themes or songs or ideas. So, like for me, when I read Priyanka's email, so selecting this particular image, so that idea of wasteland, for me, when I read that word, it didn't have to do with like something already wasted or abandoned. I felt like what we waste. I have been a fan of Disney when I'm little, and I think still the ideas that given by that is kind of funny, but they have gone to our subconscious in a way that it kind of meshes everything. It is funny that even when we know this is not even how the actual fairy tales was, but still it's the world that they have created, and it's still, for me, it's like such a lie or such a waste. But at the same time, I understand it represent good or happiness for some people, same like people songs. So I think same like this cat climbing up the window. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, for me, I'm reading Virangana's quote with this idea of globalization, Disney World, around the world, the influence of the Western popular culture. And this cat's just trying to like fucking escape, but can't seem to get out of this trap that allows you to look outside, but like
Imad, you're
look
cutting
up.
out.
And yeah, being comfortable witnessing change makes me think of like what it must have been like on the shores in the colony. While saying what it would feel like to be on the shores witnessing your colonizer. Yeah, that's sorry, I just went data sig- but this is
Imad, you cut out, Imad.
that's okay, y'all go ahead.
Virangana, what does your this quote read?
Rest the mind in this place of witnessing change and being comfortable with witnessing change.
Yeah.
It's like, after, I don't know how, I use Headspace. I try and use it every morning. So after I finish like a 10-minute meditation, it gives me like a quote of the day. And sometimes there are these random quotes that come up. So this must have been from one of those. And I had the screenshot on my phone, probably as a reminder. So I went back to a lot of my screenshots to put them in there. There's one from the packet story as well in there. Of this brick garden wall I'd seen once. And I was like, oh, that's pretty. And I found that when I was looking through my archive.
Ah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm struck also by this notion of like Disneyland, right? And this also idea of change and being comfortable witnessing change. Uh, because the whole idea of Disneyland is it's the perfect fantasy. It's the perfect world you can kind of enter into, and kind of essentially, yeah, everything is perfect and great and wonderful, and just hyper focused on happiness and pleasure and comfort. Oh, a very particular aesthetic ordered sense of the world. And then I'm just sitting next to Pitbull and globalization. There's just, we've had such complex conversations on globalization and all the kind of post-colonial, anti-colonial, all these discourses, right, about the global south and so on. And then you have this image that seems to just package it in this really fascinating way, because it's insidious and obvious at the same time, right? It's just globalization by Pitbull. It's worldwide. It's this kind of wide kind of sense. And yeah, on one end, I think the first image reads to me as like this kind of really careful melding of like globalization and all its problematics inserted into just one intense pop song. And how the relationship pop, and then relationship pop to kind of Disneyland, and then Disneyland and this notion of kind of a popular, comfortable world, and then how Imad was reading Anushka's cat, and kind of how that this cat is looking up and looking out at something elsewhere, something out there. And I'm again brought up this notion of fantasy, and then Virangana, your quote of like being comfortable with change and witnessing change. And to me, like it's almost as if like the previous images really push back against this comfort of witnessing change, right? It's kind of normalizing totalitarian image making of, I don't know, I'm just going off,
I
right? And I
agree.
think you can, yeah.
No, but also with that, the reason I also put in is because I realized how much it's pixelated, and me trying to like generally just lower the resolution of the images to upload them on the drive, and that pixelation almost sort of is like a backflow into what's happening in the other three, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of also an obscuring of that image itself, right? Yeah. All right, great. Round one is done. I am going to move this as the first image in our zine. All right, round two. So we can move a little faster now. So Tashi, why don't you go ahead again? And if you just drop it in the box, I'll expand it for you. I think you have to drag it and drop it in the first box.
One sec, sorry, my computer is, here we go.
Why don't you point to the image and I can move it over.
Here we go. How about the one that your mouse is, I think, hovering over? Yeah.
All right. First image, now we have Kitty.
Yeah. Sometimes there's one image with little gas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So God is going to finish with you.
Sri Lankans know the specific context of this. All right.
Wasteland. Wasteland.
Yeah, Anish.
I'm gonna pick this one.
Okay. Oh, something is weird. There we go. All right, and we're on the. So I'm just gonna give you a chance to have a look at these. I can expand that. Let's do that. All right, let's have a look at these. So folks, feel free to jump in at any point and kind of shout at what sticks out to you, what feels significant to you.
Is it sushi?
What's that?
Is it sushi? The last image?
Yeah.
Is that sushi?
No,
Sushi.
so I'll explain what this image is. So there was this beautiful little rock I'd found in the forest from where I'd logged in for the previous workshop. This was last year or earlier this year on a trek. And I was curious to find out what the stone is, and Farah eventually did tell me. But I put it on Google Lens to see if Google gives me an answer. Also, contemporary God, as we often refer to Google, and look for answers in Google everywhere. And as a response, Google gave me only food for this rock. So which is why I'd taken a screenshot of this.
I was thinking that's a sushi gone bad or something. Like
It could be. I mean, you never know. Like the first slide says that please be patient. Maybe it is going to be that sometime soon.
Ooh.
Google's deciding that for you.
Sandeep, can you zoom it out a bit? I'm looking at it through your screen.
Yeah. To this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So to that rock, these are the answers I got. I got like nigiri, a rice ball, a Japanese food from a rock I found in the damn forest. And it's also how we often look at Google for answers for everything now. So it's like relying on our knowledge based on something else or what we've been fed.
Yeah. For a long time, I felt like I really wanted to get good at foraging, but I had no access to the knowledge around like how to identify what plants are edible. And I just kept wanting to go to Google, but I didn't know how to describe these plants. So even I uploaded them, they were just giving me these ridiculous, things that were just green plants. And I'm like, no, I don't want a green plant. I want a specific plant for you to show me.
So interestingly, Sandeep, I've been doing this with plants as well. And I've discovered the use of some plants and the names of some plants in the forest through Google. Not always, but a few of them. It's been pretty handy. But it's the leaf, and I'll talk about this with you separately, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. I should try it. Just the leaf.
The leaf, or you focus on the flowers, that they need more details. And it comes up, yeah.
Okay. What about others? You want to talk about your associations between these?
I want to know about the third, I think it's Anushka's visit of the Prince of Wales. So that's like
Yes. This is a photo that was hanging on the wall in the Mysore Palace when I went to visit it, and there's lots of like art that's Western, that depicts like Western people, and I found it interesting that all of this is inside the Mysore Palace. I was hoping to find more depictions of like people from Mysore or like the kings.
When we look at these two images together, what does that throw up for us?
not being able to let go of the past.
Okay. In what ways?
Because I think like even like when Anushka mentioned like, so looking at these images are still inside the palace, and so looking at these litro, so if it was if it's not working anymore, what are the alternatives we can go for? So how difficult it is to go forward into when you're like have form habits or opinions. So I think in that way we are still holding on to what we're used to.
Yeah. So for some context of folks, like Sri Lanka has had a huge gas shortage, and then to offset the gas shortage, they decided to compromise on how they actually, some of the checks, basically how they kind of put the gas together, whatever chemical balance they decide to go with, they decided to alter it a little bit, which led to a series of gas explosions all over the country. And then had to then recall all these gas cans, and now there's a second gas shortage. And now Lichu has told us recently, oh, by the way, we're getting our stuff together. We made a big mistake, and we're trying to redo it. So like, give us a minute. God hasn't finished with us yet. We're going to bring you back proper gas cylinders. Just bear with us with this gas shortage for a little bit. So, I mean, these are kind of fascinating connections, right? Where we're starting to jump across, make meanings across images, and then make meanings between images, and then make meanings within images itself, like Anushka's, like looking at this and the context of kind of searching for these images of India generated from within India itself, but then you have this gaze looking at India from outside, and that's a lot of what is being looked at. So what I'm going to actually ask us to do is, now we've talked a lot about, I guess, the context between these images, or the context behind these images, right? So why did we take this particular image? Why did we choose this particular image? So for the next round, I'm going to move this as to our second round of pages in the scene. Our next round, when we upload the next set of images here, I want you to try and not think or not even share the context of the images or why you chose the images, but to look together at the images. We're going to look at just little details at the images itself and pay attention to them. So in the interest of time, I think we should go on to the next, move into the next round. So maybe we can have Kitty starting off.
Yeah, okay.
And if you want to start off with an image. And again, here we're looking at, why don't we pick the images and we can look together.
Sandeep, can you see there are like group of school boys like with mom? Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so we have this image right now. And I think, Anushka, you're next.
Yeah, I'm just moving mine into this. Yeah.
And it. All right, Piranga, you're next. All right, let me move that there. It's a packet story.
This is the one I was talking about.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. If I ever like build a garden, I want this. And I remember taking a screenshot of it. It came up yesterday when I was looking for, this morning I was looking for pictures. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Sashi, your turn. Okay. All right. So let's now let's all collectively look at the images. So no context. We're just paying attention to what we're seeing or what details we're picking out and how we're making associations with them.
And outside for the future.
Oh, could you say more about that?
So I mean, I'm looking at the first one where as kids, you're probably like all the prayers you're taught in school, and it's clearly like a school assembly in some way. To think about how you're in a way thinking about outside of your values, also thinking about the future. And you have old age and a wheelbarrow, which is fun in some way. And then I'm thinking about this garden, which looks, it's beautiful. There's no people in it, but it's also something that makes you want to like stop, gaze. It looks ideal. And then you have like iCloud storage. Everything is going out there because it's somehow in your mind eternity that is going to stay on there beyond you. So that's why I thought pray for your future in some way, perhaps. It's almost like moving in time in some way, and these ideal notions of how we may think about it, how you're spending time, and you're constantly moving into something, and then just depositing it somewhere, knowing it's safe, and then accumulating more.
Yeah. What are some other kind of associations to these images?
To me, this seems like personal versus social. So like the middle two photos say solitude and taking your time to like unwind. And then the photos like with the kids and of the iPhone is like how we need to also be part of a community and share things with people in it. And how all of like the personal and the social need to coexist in some way.
Yeah.
For me, I feel like if I compare what I see in first three visuals to the options of like what are the options that we have to share things, right? So all these possibilities. For me, what is similar about these two is like on surface levels, there's this beauty or order or peace, serenity, but underneath, I feel like it is messy or chaos when you try to handle that. For example, my Google Drive. So there's like all kind of stuff there. And like I had the same idea about these kids worshipping with these masks, and if I think of this beautiful it is a moon gate, right? So it might be really pretty from like to look at, but I think it's very difficult to maintain. So I'd rather look at it from a screen, which is not like what should have happened. And so I think in the surface level, they're like aesthetically pleasing, or like, okay, these kids are like worshipping, but why they have to do that? And it is like easy to just to limit that to the surface level, what we see in the images. And when I see the last one, the possibilities we have to like basically store our images or documents, basically any data, how much information we give to others to use freely once we use this OneDrive or iCloud or Google Drive. What are the options we have, and like we just give up, same like those kids would worship and obey. So I don't know whether my thoughts are very dark. So this is what I see.
No, I hear you. I hear you. Joshi, what about you?
I kind of had a similar thoughts to Kitty and Anushka. I think for me, the first one was very kind of like both of them were points in time, at least. So the first one, you have these kids very ordered in line following this assembly. All of them have their masks on, so they're following definite procedures. Whereas the second one, there's this old person in a wheelbarrow sitting and reading, kind of not aware or not kind of paying attention to the fact that a wheelbarrow probably wouldn't be the best option or whatever it is for furniture. And so you have these two ends of the spectrum, and I feel that to me it signified kind of two points in time where you're learning and then you're unlearning these certain rules. And then the third picture was kind of like this this really fantastical portal that we kind of like through movies or whatever association that we think of, we see through like how it might be or feel like to travel through time. Whereas the fourth one is what it's really like. You have to kind of push yourself through these digital spaces or through these very constrained kind of like structures of how work and information is passed through, and that's how you move through the world as well at times. So yeah, I thought in terms of kind of traveling through time and as a person just going through the motions, those images kind of really came together in that way.
Can I add something?
Yes, of course.
She was talking about traveling through time, like the second and the third image. In the second image, the wheelbarrow, that circle, and the passage of this circle, it seems like she's almost like taken the lid off this passage, and the book she's reading is making her travel through that time.
Yeah, exactly. I just noticed that when you say that, like even like the proportions are like very similar.
Yeah,
so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm hearing so many things, right? We're thinking about uniformity versus kind of messiness. We're thinking about time and moving forward in time. We're thinking about sort of serenity, and this sense of serenity, whereas this sense of active and community and all these relationships. But then we're also thinking about, moving forward in time and moving back in time, with these various kind of portals and analogies. We're looking at formal relationships between the images, and so on. So all of a sudden we have like quite a fun conversation between the five of us, right? And we can move this in a set of bunch of different directions. Something I also want to think about, like if we, for example, now that we have this one conversation out of the many on unity versus messiness and things like that. What happens if we look again at this picture? And what we've seen is we see unity. We see that there is everyone's wearing white, everyone's wearing a school uniform, that everyone's praying. But then all of a sudden you see one person who's not having his hands up. And what then becomes of this person? And how do we think about this person in relation to all the mechanics that have gone into creating this image? It's a school, it's a religious observance. We see that almost every schoolboy has, as that we can see and knows, that has a badge on their, to identify them as part of their school. And then we have two people whose hands are down. And then we look at all of them, they are masked. But then some people have the medical mask versus some other people have N95 versus someone here perhaps has a more advanced mask. And everyone has covered their nose except for this guy here, and then this guy over here don't have their noses covered. That was, I think, a big pandemic meme about people not kind of covering their nose. So even when we're looking at these images, we come up with a theme that relates, and that's also a reason where we've only given you a few seconds to just take that image in and then go back to pick your image. We're trying to think about really quick, free associations, and you take an impression of an image, place another image next to it, and what happens when you place two images next to each other? If you start to look a lot closer at the images themselves, they sort of unpack and push against each other, and so they unravel what we had initially seen in those kind of images. Just like what Priyanka pointed out here, and these kind of relationships here, and what Kitty was talking about, this being this beautiful scene, but it also can be messy and a lot of work and a lot of kind of taking care of. Versus this also, where we're thinking about archives and thinking about putting together and storing and looking backward and trying to find this kind of future projection or things we carry into the future, that is actually not simply organized. All of these things perhaps might do the same thing we wanted to do, but we have all these various different choices and places within which our archives are stored and ways in which we access those archives. And what we choose to share or what we choose to collect and things like that. So I think we can, we can keep going with these kind of larger things, but in the interest of time, I'm going to move a lot quicker. And again, I think we talked about all these images kind of devoid of context. And I'm interested in that, right? What happens when if we are to play with these contexts or speculate about these contexts? So Kitty, really quickly, one more image.
Okay. There's this image that says, the only thing you can be sure is my love for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That,
let's move that here. And Anushka next. And Virangana, you first. I'll expand this if you just drop that in. So that one. Okay. Right. And Tashi, you're next. Yeah, I can move it there. All right, let's jump in very quickly. So we're starting with the only thing you can be sure of is my love for you. And then we're moving forward. What relationships are sticking out to us?
This is like reality for me, at least in connection with the image and how that expands on both sides. So this is when my sister and I were climbing Crib Goch, the snow one, which is in Wales. And we thought we were taking the easy way out till suddenly when we're like halfway through Crib Goch and we realized that we'd taken the wrong path, but we'd already crossed half this knife edge mountain. And we were like, okay, you can't turn back because you have to climb back over that edge or it had to be moving forward. And we met a few trekkers on the way and one of them was like, now my wife, then girlfriend, almost left me when I made her cross this the first time. And then we realized that it became like from grade 3 to a grade 1 scramblers climb if it had rained. And if you fall, it's only death and nothing else. So all of these connections just sort of collide into this one image for me suddenly. But well, thankfully I'm sitting here alive right now. So that didn't happen yet. Yeah.
So it's kind of fascinating how all these three things start to enter into this image, right? And then kind of inform it. It's this beautiful scene. It's just like really kind of idyllic, beautiful kind of.
It's beautiful. Right? The view from there was like the best view possible, but there were all of these associations with it. But I think that's where so much comes in with reading images and text and the idea of subjectivity and how it informs an image or informs this collaboration of images for someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also, I feel like when we read these words or images, like what comes to our memory, like basically that's how we see the image, right? Completely. Like, so if it triggers a memory, so we start to see the whole collection with that lens. We can come out of it and see or give another meaning to it as well, objectively. But like at the first glance, you kind of, when things are together, you find some kind of a connection why they're together, or like you find reasons why they're together. It happens very naturally. So then later, if you start to think more, as Sandev, you pointed out earlier, like if we start to see the details in these images and the words, then we start to see more like connected or disconnected ways of how these images are together or not together.
Yeah. And what happens, I guess, when we suspend that need to look at these images objectively, because we are conditioned to, and we think about this itself as the event. What we're doing here is the event of making an image, because this together now becomes an image. And we have participated in the looking at it, if that makes sense, as an event. And by that, thereby changed what this image in isolation now looks like. And next to, I mean, this next to these two things, it looks terrifying. This
but like it says like next to it says a really reassuring way, like you can be sure of my love, like God is saying that you, like even you die, like fall and die, like so don't worry, like you will be looking better.
So you're seeing this quite reassuringly, and when I saw that, I immediately thought of like, you know, something, you know, in a particular kind of format, like an abusive relationship that says only I can love you in a particular way.
I
thought that too.
really offer it.
Yeah.
Because
sorry, go ahead.
Go on, Anushka. Yeah. Tashi, you know, like go on, Tashi.
Yeah, so what Sandeep said about kind of it being kind of like an element of abusiveness in it, what I thought was when I looked at the only thing you can be sure of is my love for you, is thinking of that association with like the vehicle of language and Hindi as being like the way that you understand or go through the world. And then once you're at this point of like where language can take you, which is the peak, someone like Joan Didion, who was somebody who used language to get to that peak, at this, as some may argue, and she herself is just stating, do you have hope for what? Not in particular, like what happens when you get to that peak, when you go through the hot air balloon ride, you get to that peak, and then there's really nowhere else that you can expand yourself and understand the world, or kind of, you know, and go through it within that language. What happens then? And that's like a really scary thought, I think. It's just like, yeah, a really daunting image. Yeah.
A sort of response to that, there's this other image which I have in my image collection, which was the view from this peak, which was stunning. It's like almost, if you die after having seen this beautiful, stunning view, at least.
Happy.
Like I kept thinking that at least I'm looking at something beautiful if I fall off this cliff.
Yeah. All right, so let's take this this terrifying set of images and let's move it to the next page, Razeen. All right, and now I think we have Anushka beginning.
All right, just yeah, I'll pick this one.
All right, so here's that. Nice. And Virangania. I'll take that. Okay. And Tashi, you're next. Yeah. And Kitty,
Okay.
which one should I pick?
Oh, there's you can see like from aerial view there's a keels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Wow, we're getting rituals. Sorry. All right, who's wants to dive in? So folks, in between, Imad just had to leave because they had a power cut, and their phone had also was dying. But yeah, they just let me know. Sorry, go ahead, Kitty.
Yeah, for me, I see a lot of like patterns or repetition or rituals, right? So what we are used to, like even these ingredients and like exactly like quarter or like half, 1/8, and the rituals that yes, I think this is some kind of a temple, like worshiping place. So how we continue to worship or believe or follow that, and how we would follow this. And uh, I'm trying to understand the third image. It feels like a trustful, maybe, I don't know, or some kind of a group event, but like at first glance, I feel like there's some kind of a commotion, but I see there's a person behind, like kind of demonstrating how to keep hands. So I don't know whether that person is scared. So I feel that's some kind of a training or like group work. And the last image, like even in like very difficult situation, people will still follow what we are used to, having this queue going round and round this building. So I feel like this first image is very meaningful in that way for me subjectively, because I feel like this is how it all started. Like if we go to our beginning of like our rituals, right? Like in history. So we started having habits and like things like in order, this is how we do it. And we are looking at the last image, like it's our most recent like universal experience of like having to follow things together in like different environment. So yeah, for me, that's what I find similar, like at first glance in these four visuals.
Who else?
So I'm just gonna go into the third image a bit. What you see there is basically it's the trust halls, like Kitty said, from a theater practice that we had when I was quite young. So my classmates on the corners were all about 15, 16, and we're not really like, most of them were into sports, but not really like, let's carry a heavy weight on command kind of thing. So what happened is they would get the older the older assistants, the older people in the group to kind of like assist. So they would kind of stand in front of you to make sure that your weight would be caught. And I was looking at that, and then the image on the corner of Keels, and kind of the idea that the supermarket will save you, which is something that a lot of people had to rely on, especially the more poorer people, when they couldn't go to the market and buy and afford a lot more vegetables or buy in bulk. They had to go to the supermarket so that they can get like 1 or 2 carrots or something like that during the pandemic. And it's this idea that that the supermarket will always be there. This monstrous collection um, of 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 trade and transport and whatnot will always be there at the end of the day to kind of save you, to cushion your fall, which I thought was an interesting interesting contribution to the conversation of ritual and kind of sacredness and safety, which, yeah, I think these pictures really speak a lot to, especially the first two as well, in terms of what Kitty was saying, the origins of our ritual and practice, and sense of religious belief, insurance, along with kind of the ingredients that things will work out if you just follow this map. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I thought of growth when I saw this, when I saw the entire set of images together. I mean, growth, but also perspective, because they all seem partly incomplete in some way. except for the last image, which almost like zooms out into an aerial view. So it's also growth that leads into you expanding the image, which is what, in a way, we're doing over here, about how you start creating your own storyline around what you see in association with it. And how all of these images cut off something in some way.
And also, like what Tashi said, like, so when I look at this again, after listening to Tashi, I feel like all these are about even the trust pole, or standing in a queue or following a recipe or worshiping this tree. We don't know what will happen, but we hope to God, like, okay, we are going to follow this and probably we will get a good result. So basically all these 4 images kind of symbolize that to me. Like, so maybe they wouldn't happen, but still we would follow. For example, if when you fall, the other person can remove, like go away, and you can fall to the ground. And even when you are in the queue, it actually happened to a lot of people, right? When you're in the queue for hours, and when you go inside the uh, supermarket, the food is like already finished, like they're out of stock. Uh, and following a recipe, I have personal experience in that. Like, even I follow that, like, it doesn't taste same twice. If I made it, like, it would taste 2 different tastes. So I think maybe I can't cook, but anyway. So I think all these are about like following a certain order, thinking it will give us some kind of hope in this wasteland. So it's easy that way when there's order. Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking of how we can gather in smaller communities, like how even people in the same apartment would not like sometimes talk to each other, and you don't know like your immediate neighbors, because basically everything can be delivered to your doorstep, and so you don't have to go out and socialize with like in real life, and not on your phone. And so the first and third image kind of speak to me of how religion and smaller communities can bring people together. So the first image is actually like from a park in front of my house, and although it's like a grave, there's Indian, like there's gods on it, like Hindu gods, and I have no idea, like nobody's ever objected to it. Nobody's like, it's a very surreal thing to find in a park, where lots of people go there and see it every day, but nobody ever questions it, or why are these gods over here and on this grave, especially why is this grave in a park, like and the second and the third image kind of mean to me of how now everything starts to revolve around capitalism, and that's become the new god in a way. And because we have to buy all these, like there's a huge list of ingredients and we have to get these items, and the only way we can do that is supermarket, or where every person is basically in the line, even though there's so many people, it's each for their own, and there's no sense of community. Even in a queue, there might not be a sense of community, or yeah.
With this first image, it also makes me think about, when we're going back to the sense of smaller communities, like what are the events that led up to a grave being set up in a public park? And what community was surrounded that? And the fact that no one opposes it anymore, because at some point in time, there were a group of people who didn't oppose to it. There was a reason that was built here. And then there was a set of, we could think that there's a set of maybe systems that, or events that have taken place that have led to this moment. Now we are reading into it as a moment again of this document that you have provided. And now we are thinking about, oh, wait, what could have happened? What could have kind of constructed this? And what does it mean for this to happen? Can this happen now also? I also find it very curious here, just the kind of the split in the middle about the paving on one side and then the trash on the other.
Oh, that's actually like just gods, like those small idols.
Right.
It's
Yes.
like
Yes.
trash,
Yes.
but
Yes.
then they
Yes.
just
Yes.
put it somewhere. And
Yeah.
I thought that's trash. Now only I can.
this, yeah, there's also a bit of leaves and maybe some trash
Mm.
as well.
Wow. This is, I think, so far my favorite kind of connection. Tashi, what was the name of the play that you were training for here?
So that, I think this was called Desert Places.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the second, so there's two, so same play but two different versions. The first one was called Desert Places. The second one was called Fruitcake.
So, folks, I'm also related to Tashi. So I know this particular piece of information, which is, yeah, the second version of this play was called Fruitcake. And I think it's very curious that it was next to this set of ingredients.
Apple crumble cake recipe. Half of it. If anyone wants the second half, I can send it.
All right. Let's move on.
Interestingly, I looked for this recipe after eating it at a cafe during Serendipity in 2019. 18,
Nice.
and I liked it so much. Oh, was it 19? And I liked it so much. I came back and started looking for apple crumble cake recipes till I could find one that tasted like the one I was eating in Goa for breakfast during Serendipity because it was so good.
That's amazing. I think I was at that Serendipity too.
The last one that happened physically.
Yes, in Goa. Yeah, yeah. So we first debuted the packet. Anushka, do you want to do one more? I can move that. Tashi? Or Hirangan, I think we missed you. Right.
Maybe if you are going to use this to publish it anywhere, we could just blur out the profile pictures of the people who show up over there.
Over
Because
here?
yeah, I mean, that's if you're going to use it any further, because I'm not sure whether they'd like it, because I recognize some of them, so just for safety.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't think we don't particularly have any plans, but maybe we can send an email around and see if we feel like, putting it at least PDF that we can all print out and we can think about. Yeah. Kitty, is there one in particular?
Yeah, there's a office space
Yes.
one item on the table. Yeah. That one, the last one.
Okay. Given the time, I think we might have to move through a little bit of rapid fire round. So I'm just gonna go over these bits. All right, what do we see?
Just information fatigue.
Yeah, they're all kind of digital kind of, also digital images, right? In some sense, they've been screenshotted as an archive of a digital moment in some sense. The first three, at least. What else?
Oh, we are being kind of I don't I can't say the word control or manipulate, but maybe kind of handled by AI or technology, and or that things that can represent us, like what I feel in when I look at these dummies, right? So standing there, so the same way I feel like these tiny bubbles that represent us in this video, and in the first image that I see that the first prompt is like chopsticks for girls, and why we are to think that, like for what? So why it comes up first? So it's kind of frustrating, but we are so used to this change. And like the last image is about like instead of cubicles, like okay, so this technology is like kind of unhealthy, so how to make like human contact better, and they kind of remove the cubicles and they kind of try to sit next to each other, and that's way worse because they're so used to sit next to each other in the cubicles. When you come out, you tend to say hi at least, but when you're sitting next to a person or group of people, you like eventually stop talking to them at all. Here, that was the article was about. And I think this is funny, like how this person is like, I give up and just like lay on top of the table. So for me, that's how I find these images are connected.
What about others? We have to move a little quicker. But just if you were to quickly kind of rapid fire free associate words or meanings and thoughts that we're having.
I think that the phrase live video ended, along with kind of the man on the table just completely horizontal, no longer participating in whatever the interactions are, digital or in person, and along with kind of the plastic dolls on the street, dressed and gendered as well in their clothing, and protesting in that form. Really, yeah, it's like the absence of human. There's one man on the corner there in his helmet, but overall there's this really strange dystopian feel of having cute plastic bodies on the street as a way of resistance, which is yeah, interesting or morbid. Mm.
Why chopsticks for girls?
I have the same question, yes.
Why?
Also, it even breaks it down into a category here: in home and kitchen.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Well, we can move on to the next one. One thing that Tashi, you had said, and also Kitty, you had been speaking about, is this this notion of refusal to participate, and kind of the various forms of thinking about refusal to participate. As I mean, I think this was, I think, also from that time when planking was like a meme, or like it was a thing that people were doing online, right? There's like, and you have a particular space and you interrupt it, you disrupt it by behaving in that particular space in a different way, in a way that is not normal or not dominant in that space. So thinking about planking itself, or whatever this image is, as a refusal to participate, even in the documentation of that particular image, that there is a document of someone acting outside of the dominant or outside of the ordinary in that particular space, as it relates to some of these things, right? Some of these notions of protest, that live video has ended, that a broadcast perhaps has ended, and also this notion of, yeah, what even the act here of Anushka herself screenshotting just this and paying attention to why, that the creation of an image as protest. Because the moment we look at it, we're all asking the question, why chopsticks for girls? But for some reason, that was a keyword that was in there, and a particular kind of SEO thing that had been typed in there for people to search. So again, these are questions. They're in the making of the image or in the studying of the image, a way of looking at an event. So in the interest of time, maybe we just do one last round, and maybe Virangana, you could lead on this. Let me just delete these.
Okay, if this is the last one, let's put in the view I was talking about. I don't know.
All right, let me move that. I can move that if you like. Tashi,
also on 15% battery, which I don't have a charger, so I'm hoping I can stick this out, but I'm on till my computer dies.
Imad and I discussed about this just being 1 hour. It's going to be such a quick thing.
This is so much fun.
I'm glad. Kitty?
The first one, there's a living room.
The living room. This one. And Anushka?
Yeah, I think I'll take this one.
All right, final round. I mean, you can all still play on this Figma even after this call, and I can come back to it and put it all into a PDF for you if you want, and then we can maybe also edit out and mask some of those pictures of faces. All right, this is a interesting one. What are we seeing here? What is sticking out at you? What are you noticing in these images itself that is curious to you?
I keep going back to looking at the text image for cues to take over. It also makes me think of how, we start looking for description when you can't find connections.
You mean the second image, is it?
Yeah. The only one which has text in it, really.
Yeah.
And when you look at something and even at spaces and you wonder what it is, you immediately look for, this is subconsciously what I realized I was doing was going back to this image to pick up on cues to connect the three.
Yeah, the text becomes the joining point. Yeah.
For me, to pick this image, like when Virangana said, so earlier, Virangana, you mentioned this beautiful weave, and so I didn't see the image at that time, and now you added it. And while you were saying that, I was thinking, what is beauty or beautiful to me is something familiar, and it might not be as beautiful how it looked like, how I say it to anyone else. So this, how our normal living rooms used to be. I mean, why I say used to be, I don't have a living room like this now, because whole house is taken for canvas or benches or whatever. But this is very nostalgic, this image. And at the same time, there's this idea of like wasted or things that haven't analyzed or things that haven't done or forgotten can't go back anymore. So that's what reminds from this image. So, and it's beautiful for me in a way. So when you said you're going to add this image, I was thinking I want to add this image. And I can't find a connection with other two images.
It's
Maybe I'm
interesting you say that, because now when you mention living room and that, what also reminds me is of I saw it in a few people's homes growing up, and more like my grandfather's generation, where they'd have an entire wall of their living room with this wallpaper of like either a waterfall or like a beautiful place which may not have ever existed or which they haven't seen. And it was usually just the scenery which took up one entire wall in their house. Like two of my grandfather's friends I remember had that, and I used to always be fascinated because I'd never seen it anywhere. And it was just like as though you were looking out at this view which you knew was pasted there, but it was also this very beautiful landscape.
I remember those big wallpapers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
So
a big
that-
wallpaper of a jungle and then like a
Exactly.
false pond in front of it, made
Yeah,
out of cement.
exactly.
Yeah.
So this reminded me of that when Kitty brought up the living room and suddenly that image together with it.
Mm.
and these chairs that nobody sits
Yeah.
because nobody
Mhm.
would sit somewhere else.
I think of like obsolete things when I look at the first, third, and fourth image.
Mm.
So climate change, I don't know how many of these lakes will be there 100 years from now. And also the TV in the third image.
Yeah.
And then the water pump, which does not work, but it's still there.
Mhm.
The TV is another reason because like now if I think of the place I live now, the furniture are like in whatever the direction, but I can remember like whenever there is a living room like this in Sri Lanka, all the furniture or chairs
Points
towards
towards the TV. Yeah.
uh, so that's not anymore, I think.
Mhm.
That nostalgia maybe leads back to the second image in some way.
I'm very curious to know like what
Yeah.
this image is of.
Yeah, I was wondering whether to explain it or not. So, so basically, with the first image, when I first saw it, I was thinking of kind of like this idea of freedom, of expansiveness, and of being able to kind of like explore, because those are kind of the images, like Virangana said, that will be plastered on your wall or on the back of a bus or on some travel brochure. And it reminded me of this image is basically it came from a kind of a collective study session with a group of my friends and people who are studying with me, and we were looking at Amartya Sen's capability theory of capabilities, which he talks about how resources are basically transferred onto capabilities and how they're transferred onto functionings, and therefore basically the direct line to how do you achieve freedom. And there was this internet trend at the time called berries and cream, and the song would go, "I'm a little lad who loves berries and cream." So to make sure that everyone kind of remembered it, we put the song, dressed up Amartya Sen as the little lad who loves berries and cream, and kind of that has sadly been ingrained in my brain as the understanding of freedom. And how how do we achieve freedom is that this little lad has berries, he now has cream because he can combine the two, and all of a sudden his identity is this little lad who has berries and cream. And so basically, I know it's a little jarring, and there's so much context, and it's very hyper specific involved in the image in itself. But the moment that I saw the earlier image, it just the fact that it was there, and I just remember this again. So yeah, it's a little bit jarring with everything else, but and you need a lot of information to understand it. But in terms of how do we understand freedom, how do we achieve it? And Kitty's what she said about the chairs and that kind of family home, and it kind of being there and being very nostalgic, but at the same time being slightly wasted, slightly not something that you really truly want to go back to and live in. And what does that mean for that process of that freedom of, is it a developmental line? Is it a one thing gets better, or is it nostalgia to something that isn't too pleasant? And what can the human, experience expand to? And I think that also works for the water pump as well, because it feels very, I'm not sure if the person is posing next to it, or kind of actually trying to get water from it, or trying to see if this is how they did it in the olden days, or if it's actually a functioning tap. But it just feels very kind of disconnected, I'd say, with a lot of people kind of watching and looking. And yeah, I guess looking at the broader vision of wastelands, of kind of knowing these different ideas and structures, but not being very disconnected to them as well, and looking at them as from a very touristy outsider perspective. Yeah, the image, of course, I do have to apologize. It's very high, like it needs so much context to understand it. But yeah.
I think this notion of, sorry, did someone about to say something?
No, Sandeep.
Okay.
Not.
No, I just think this notion of time, right? And this way of going back versus forwards, which way we're looking at. I think beginning from Kitty's image and thinking in different lines. And I think we're looking at these two images and thinking about, Virangana, you're going back to, older homes where you had this wallpaper plastered on a wall like this, kind of imagining a different place, right? Moving to somewhere else, it's kind of wild, beautiful scenery. And then Kitty, you're looking back at these living rooms that don't really exist anymore. And then Tasha, you're kind of talking about the person being disconnected from this particular history, between the kind of water pump not functioning. They're almost a visitor to this water pump. They're a visitor for how it works, how it relates to them, what they're trying with this, in addition to them all kind of being visitors to this other kind of historical location, is what it seems. And then I think you're talking about this kind of economic theory. When I'm looking at, as soon as you talked about that kind of economic sense of capabilities theory of Amartya Sen and development and freedom and what these things mean, I immediately kind of go to this, and I'm kind of confronted by the wildness of this place and how wild and uncontrolled it seems. And then all of a sudden you have this very ordered, really beautiful built road smack dab in the middle of it, connecting things. And also being in some ways shaped by it, but also shaping this kind of wildness, and how that perhaps relates to, what's going on here. The kind of disconnectedness from a particular wildness or a particular history of development, of building, of kind of enterprise. I'm also kind of a furniture nerd. So when I look at it makes me think about so many little things here. One of the things it thinks about, I'm looking at this lamp here. This lamp was a very kind of classic mid-century design of the pendant lamp hanging in the middle of the dining table. If you look at through catalogs of 50s, 60s, and 70s interior design magazines, this was all the craze in many ways. in Europe, and it's coming back, and this kind of design of the pendant lamp. And then these chairs, for example, and then this furniture. So you see here this curved leg, or this angled leg, with this chair as an angled leg, a very kind of Danish. This is me nerding out, but a Danish kind of design that was developed as a Danish designers, but then slowly exported back to South Asia and places like that. And you had shops or workshops locally producing their own versions of these kind of tables and chairs that always had a little bit more adornment than the Danish designs had. Always had a little bit of a square, and then there's a little bit of a round here, and a curve and a crevice, and this little ball at the bottom. And then here, you see another ball here and another little ball here. So there's this kind of really mixing and matching of various different design trends, and trends on memorabilia of development and globalization in terms of material, and how design and thoughts around design moved between places of power and places without power. And then how these living rooms were in many ways aspiring to be to kind of replicate the kind of mid-century living room. But then you can't help but have the big waterfall or the big scenery also in that kind of same space with the same furniture. Again, in some ways, an aspiration to this feels like a ground floor or an apartment floor, and very little light coming in, very little windows. And I'm also noticing this painting here. I can't tell what it is, but the ornate frame kind of relationships there. I guess we can kind of talk on forever about these ideas, but I do want to address something that Tashi brought up, maybe as a last thing, which is that notion of hyperspecificity of something. There are these general images that we can all recognize, and all of a sudden someone introduces an image to a very specific meme and a very specific context and an unnamed figure and very specific writing also that we had no way to access, right? But and by virtue of almost introducing this kind of hyper local to Tashi, this image, and then talking about it and exchanging the idea or the story behind it, or speaking into the story behind it, we start to read these other images also somewhat differently, or maybe in the same way, or it informs the ways in which we read these images. And I think that's perhaps what's also really fascinating about kind of pulling and kind of working with images in this way, is that there's a lot of hyper specificity kind of going on here, hyper locality. But what happens when we start to bring them together? And we're not just making associations individually, but we're starting to make connections and relationships as a group of people and looking at it together. We start to kind of go off in so many different directions and so many different, I feel like there are, 15 pieces that we could come out from this and kind of explore and research and develop further on. I'm thinking about, not going to attempt to kind of summarize all the different thoughts here, but I feel like this is a really fascinating collection of a conversation, or symptoms of a conversation, or kind of evidences of a conversation. And so what happens when we start to introduce this to other people and invite them to kind of look at these images and play and think about the idea of looking at these images together and talking about these images together, in fact, as the event of image making, or as a event of image making. Can conversation be a way we make images, or we look at images, and we push back against the way in which we perhaps think about it? What happens when we just see this image, and the rules and the assumptions and the kind of ideologies that have played onto essentially producing this single image? And what happens when we play with that and we mess with that and we interrupt that particular identity with these other three images? So that's it. Wow, with 5 minutes left, Imad and I really thought this was going to be an hour-long workshop. We were like, we'll finish early, it'll be great. But thank you, folks. You all have access to this Figma board, so please feel free to mess around with it further and do more here. But thank you so much, folks. Let me know if you have any kind of last comments or questions or anything. But yeah, it's been fun playing this little game with you. And we have a zine. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sheets, which is, I'm really bad at math. 7 into 4, 20 something, 40 something page zine.
28.
Yeah,
It's-
28. There we go. There we go. We have a 28-page scene. That, it could be fun. What happens if we were to deliver these sets of, print this out as a PDF, to send it to someone, have them make sense of it? And how do our minds work when we're reading these images and reading them in relationship to each other? And again, this is a very low tech kind of way of thinking about images, but I think it's worth thinking about the kind of futures we can produce, especially when we're thinking about archives, and archives being constructed with particular ideas about what they want to represent, and what happens when we look at our own archives that we have collected, which are very disorganized, and we look at, and can we take this approach to other archives, and thinking about this painting right here that Anushka introduced, and what happens if this is presented as a very particular archive, the particular set of understandings and ideas around how we see something, how we're made to or told to look at something. And what happens when we interrupt it? What happens when we push back against it? And what happens when we disorganize it? Yeah, and that's kind of the potential that we were interested in exploring. So, yeah, thanks for joining along.
Thank you. This was such a fun evening session and such a perfect way to like wrap up the year as well.
Wonderful.